Pardon me? Okay. So I have a question before we get started. How many of you are on a team? Wow, that's pretty good. How many of you are not on a team? All right, well, you guys who are not on a team, hey, talk to each other, okay? Any of you who are not on a team want to pitch your idea in order to recruit for your team? Alex, you had good practice this weekend. So, okay, so I'm just going to encourage you, I'll mention this in a minute, but we're going to have a short session today because there is this networking night that's happening upstairs that I want to give you time to go to, where you can meet other folks who might be able to join your team, or you might be able to have practice pitching. Speaking of practice pitching, how many of you came to the pitch clinic this weekend? Was it good or did it suck? Okay. Good and great and didn't suck. Okay, we're having another one. It's a week from Wednesday. We will have the second sort of opportunity to practice your pitch and get some tips and tricks on how to better craft it and do a better job. If you've already come, you can come again. But there will also be food, and it's a really good opportunity to get some further practice. Yes. Say that again?
The RSVP for the second pitch clinic
didn't work.
It doesn't work.
All right, I will go speak to someone to fix that. It's not my fault. No, sorry. We'll fix that, okay? I also wanted to highlight those of you who are on teams. There's this wonderful little function in Canvas under People called Student Groups. Use that, and you can put all your names on that student group, and then when you can send me things from that student group. I can reply just to that student group, and then all of it will go directly to you. It makes it easier for us to grade. It makes it easier for you to communicate, so you can name it and go through there. Several of you have already done that, so thank you for that. Does anybody want to give a pitch before I dive into our presentation for the day? I saw... No? Yes?
Can I pitch something even though I can't work on it?
You could. Practice is good. Come on up. Be quick, though. All right.
Okay, so the problem is that right now, well, first of all, the beauty industry is changing. There's a lot of relationships between big markets or big industries partnering up with YouTubers. And so the YouTubers basically pitch these products. But the problem is that there's a lot of beauty gurus, I guess, who are white and people of color like me. Even though they swatch it on this like fairer skin, it doesn't look the same on me because I have yellow undertones. And so I wish I knew what makeup would look like when it was swatched on different undertones or different skin tones. And so to get to there, I wish someone would make like an app or something that when you take a picture of yourself, that it would, gosh, I'm like blinking right now, correctly like know your skin type. And there are paint apps out there like to like paint your home, but I think skin type is different, and I wish someone would tackle this so that I don't have to waste my money buying all these different foundations, and I can just get the foundation I want online, because that's like a convenience. Thank you.
All right. Who sees this as something they would want as well? All right, very good. I do think you could do a little research, because I think there are at least related applications out there. I know there are some makeup suppliers who are focused on, sort of non-standard skin types and skin colors. But I think it's an interesting idea. So maybe you will decide to pursue it. Okay, so thank you for doing that. Oh, did you want a cookie? Are you sure? I brought actually something new and special today. I brought a vegan Russian tea cookie.
I was the girl who asked for pink sprinkles, the pink frosting with sprinkles.
Yeah. No, I don't have any pink frosting with sprinkles, but if you actually participate again next week. I'll see what I can do, okay? All right, so we've got a lot to cover today. I kind of want to start by, remember we've talked a lot about the ABCs, right? You've heard that. You've heard me say that. You'll probably hear me say that 100 more times. So, and the importance of figuring out, how to get to point B. So it's easy to write that stuff down and say, look, we got to go from here to over there. But the map is not the terrain. Sometimes going from point A to point B does not look at all like what it might be in a theoretical or, when you just sort of write it down. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, is actually understanding that territory into which you're going to actually try to build your business and hopefully avoid falling off a cliff. That quote, "The map is not the territory," comes from this guy, a Polish-American philosopher, independent scholar, all-around great guy. Not me. I am most of those things, but I'm not him. So what we're going to talk about today actually is understanding what I would call your playing field, that territory in which you're going to play. And key part of that is on multiple dimensions, both assessing the opportunity that made you excited enough and interested enough, the problem, the size of that problem, to get involved in the first place, but the risks and challenges that you will face in going from point A to point B. So that's the purpose of our session today. This is the first of the second section of this whole, this entire class, where we've gone from thinking about product to now starting to say, all right, I have a product idea that I can actually even build. How do I build a plan for doing that? And the first part of that plan is really kind of deep homework on assessing the playing field. So how are we going to go through that? We're going to do the following things. First, I'm going to introduce two concepts, very, very, very simple concepts, on how really easy to just continuously go through and understand assessing that playing field, those two tools, 3 C's and SWOT. Then we're going to have, hopefully, that he will come, someone who's done a superb job recently in actually applying exactly this kind of thinking to not just identify an opportunity, but how to exploit and enter into that opportunity in a way that has taken him from pretty much zero project in his, the back of his house to having a $25 million Series A, biggest fundraise in Seattle last year. Jim Xiao is the founder of Mason and should be a fun and exciting speaker. And then lastly, as I already mentioned, you're going to go and hopefully one element of the landscape is, the playing field is you as players, and hopefully you will meet some new players this evening because we'll close that a little quickly. And a quick wrap up, again, on a couple other elements of risk and a different perspective, which is an investor perspective on risk. So let's start by talking about the tools. No, I am not talking about Paris Hilton. I'm talking about this person right here, Sun Tzu. Anybody know of this book, The Art of War? Yes? You want to say something about it, Eric?
It just talks about a lot about strategy when it comes to war and pretty much how to build out battle plans and stuff.
So battles usually happen on a territory, right? And so how do you think about that? It's a very, very short book. I don't want to make all my metaphors about war, but very often business is like that. And I think, there's generations of business people who have read Sun Tzu and have been highly inspired to think differently about that. Cookie for you? We also have chocolate chip, M&M. Does that sound good? All right, good. Nice participating. All right. So basic notion is, you need to think not just knowing yourself, but also knowing your enemy, what you're up against. In this case, obviously competition. If you know both, you will be more likely to succeed than if you only know yourself. Now, my method is, I add one other thing to this. It's called the 3 C's. Very, very simple. The first C, anybody know what this film is? Anybody see this film? I know it's one more obscure. Yes, back there.
Yes, I've seen it.
And what's the name of the film? Tampopo. Okay, you definitely get a cookie if you want one. What do you want? We got like a oatmeal weird vegan cranberry one. We have a Russian tea cookie, and we have chocolate chippy thingies. Okay. Okay, good. We got one of those left. All right, so we're gonna. So this movie is one of my favorite movies. It's all about food, but one of the most important things that these guys do in this film, it's about a woman who starts a ramen stand, and what she really wants to do is understand her customers very, very well. So she literally, and one of the things you'll note is in this, and if you've ever been to Japan and you don't drink you don't have all of your ramen done, they will look. A good ramen stand will look and see whether you ate or slurped every last drop. Because if you didn't, something was wrong. So they're paying very close attention to customers. So the customers are critical. They're really the end zone of this playing field. They're by the way, every time I use a sports metaphor, please forgive me because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But you really, really, really need to know customers. And if you kind of learn nothing else about this section, it is go and talk to people. Go find out data about the people who might be buying your product, right? There's several reasons you want to do this. One, they give you ideas, right? You will learn things about their life when you literally talk to customers personally. They will tell you things you didn't know. If you're trying to make a decision between doing one thing and another, and making one investment for another, and a customer really tells you, you know what, I would put that to the top of the priority queue, that should help you make a decision. Because in the end, they're the most important people for you to persuade. They help you. They actually help you in the rest of the playing field because they are assessing your competitors, right? They are assessing you. So they are an incredible source of intelligence, not just about themselves, but about the rest of the playing field. How do you do this? Jason, remember him, came in. He talked about a fair amount about this top-down market analysis. We even had in office hours a few conversations today. Where's Alex? Alex, you left? She was here. So we were talking about, understanding her market. Go get some information either about the bigger market or the more narrow market. Hi, Alex. We were talking about you in top-down market analysis and how important it is to understand sort of the customer writ large. But also bottoms up. So I can tell you, I used to work for Microsoft, as you may know, and I used to run market research. And so one of the things that was, you could spend a lot of money and do all kinds of important surveys, but what we actually ended up doing was getting on a plane and going and talking to hundreds of customers in person in their work, because we were studying how Microsoft Office worked. And going and living in a place where the customer actually was, you learn things differently. You're on their territory. It's very different than a focus group that's artificial and everybody's eating snacks and kind of wants to make you happy. You'll get the real truth when you're there. So in principle, just in general, go out there, talk to people. Do not be afraid. Do not be bashful. Talk to your potential customers wherever they are, right? And that will help you. Let me give an example of how important this is. So, and how important it is to think about this customer set. So we are actually, where were we? We were just talking about payments. Raise your hand. Where were you? You came to my office just a minute. Yes. So you could probably speak to some of this, but there's an industry of payments providers out there in the world today who've done really interesting things. This is probably maybe a little out of date, but there's Square readers. There's the Starbucks app, which is really a pretty successful payments engine. There's monthly, there's Apple Pay, there's PayPal. So there is a big market. By the way, part of what you're trying to do with a customer, studying that first C is identify gaps, just like the same ABC. But actually, some of the world's fastest areas are very underserved by payments. So if you look at Africa, Africa is the fastest growing population of any sector in the world. And yet, there are very few people who live in Africa, who, as a percentage, who actually have bank accounts. And until recently, people had mobile phones, but they didn't have smartphones. Okay, so you have incredible mobile phone and sort of feature phone penetration, but very poor smartphone penetration. Now, either that's a problem or it's a giant opportunity. What came in to fill that opportunity is some folks who actually, as a study, they were college students. They did a study and said, well, that's really interesting. How can we actually use that gap in the market and not ask customers to go buy a whole new set of infrastructure, but instead use, do you know about M-Pesa? Okay, you want to say anything about it? Okay, no? Chicken? No. So M-Pesa basically turned mobile minutes that people buy without any bank accounts into currency, so that you could actually trade mobile minutes using your phone to buy things or to sell things. So it became so easy to actually start a store, even in a favela or a ghetto, and say, look, I'm just going to start a little store. I don't need a payments processor or anything like that. I just need a mobile phone, right? And it doesn't even have to be a smartphone. It's just a mobile phone, and you can give me your minutes in M-Pesa, and that's currency, right? And so you can actually get your M-Pesa withdrawal, your deposits, withdrawals, anywhere you can buy a SIM card or fill up your numbers. And what's amazing is, so again, transfers airtime. It can do incredibly small transactions. It's super cheap. And they now have 25 million users. It actually, in Kenya, accounts for 43% of the country's GDP, okay? Using pretty standard available technology. That is the importance of understanding how your customer is different than just taking, Apple Pay and shoving it into that market, which would not have worked at all. And you can actually look, as exciting as Bitcoin is, the number of mobile transactions in Kenya, with M-Pesa is outpacing, this really cool, super cool technology called Bitcoin. All right. That's C1. C2, the competition, right? This is again, I use these sports analogies, and I really, it's like I don't play football. The defensive line in the way, right? So you want to know your competition as well. Many of you have really, really interesting ideas, but one of the number one things you're going to find is that you're not the first one with that idea or something like that idea. So you're going to have to find some way to be different, right? Or compete or understand the alternatives that those customers that you're so excited about have and face. So you actually, why do you need to get to know the competition? You really need to study the competition. Well, one, assume they're smart, okay? If they've already done, one of the best things is if there is competition, they've already done a lot of work for you. So steal their work. Learn what they've learned, right? If there are incumbents in the marketplace, especially go talk to Jason again, right? He will help you find analyst reports on those competitors and learn what's working and not working for them. One of the most important things you want to do there is go, are they a threat, or are there areas where they're weak that they could be an opportunity for me? And one of the most important things you want to do is anticipate what they're likely to do next. Wayne Gretzky, and I do know a little bit about hockey, old hockey player, he always said, go where the puck is. You want to skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is, right? So you want to understand where that competitor might be going, and either avoid them or actually, get behind them. You can also, there's nothing wrong with imitation. Remember Xiao Yu, right? I mean, she looked and said, look, there's already these things in the marketplace. In one market, they're not here. I'm going to use those, right? She's still doing that and building great businesses. So imitation is not something that you should be ashamed of. You should use it, right? How do you do this? Well, one is be their customers. If you're not a user of your competitors' customers, your competitors' products, you're making a mistake. I've worked with a number of companies where we had this at Microsoft, but a number of the companies I've worked with, we literally would have a competitive product manager. Their whole purpose in life was to actually be the expert and evangelist for our competitors' products. And we would have shootouts, right? Where we literally go, we're going to fight this, you're going to actually convince us that your product is better than ours, right? And that would help us understand where our weaknesses were. You can do a bunch of this sort of tracking the tea leaves, looking ahead. Well, you can read about competitors, their financials, use PitchBook or whatever else. Read their press releases. Understand how they talk about themselves. Talk to their customers. You can be a secret shopper. You can pretend you want to buy their product and ask the retailer or whomever, customer service, test that. Find out what's working, what's not working, and relentlessly punish them for their mistakes and avoid their strengths. Think like them. Again, remember I said we would actually get in the mindset of our competitor and be that competitor. It would help us strategically. Yes, of course, you can do top-down market analysis, stock analysis, etc. will help you with that. Let's look at an example of why this is important and how an analysis of competitors and being smart about who your competitor is or how you define that competitor can actually yield big results. Again, I want to highlight, when you think of a competitor, the competitor is the alternative that your customer may have to you. So, one could be something in a different category that you're in. It's just they're going to use something else to solve the same problem. So I'm just going to pick here's this mind your P's and Q's. You can actually map your competitors on a price to quantity sold matrix, okay? And I'm going to use the hotel industry. So the hotel industry is pretty interesting. It parses out where there's a group of, and by the way, they have a massive segmentation of lots and lots of different groups of how you would call different alternatives in hotels. So there's luxury hotels like the Four Seasons, Shangri-La, etc. They are very expensive and they appeal to a very small number of people. There's upscale. This is literally from the hotel industry, they call this. It's Swiss Hotel, Westin, etc. So they they're still very expensive, but appeal to a bit broader group of people. There's upscale. These things, some of them don't feel entirely upscale to me, but they call themselves that. Upper mid-scale. The Homewood Suites, Holiday Inn, Hojo's is not here. Mid-scale, and then finally budget economy. So that's the current market landscape. And if you study that market landscape, you see it's really all over the place. But what's interesting is that's not looking at this market from the customer's perspective. If you look at this from the customer's perspective, they're not buying hotels, they're buying a place to stay. So if you actually look and say, well, now how does this look if we think about it that way? You go, well, Airbnb has just completely flipped the thing on its head and said, we're going to basically relegate all of those customers to extremely small supply, all those competitors to extremely small supply compared to all the houses that could be rented out in the entire world, right? So they basically shook up the lodgings industry completely by redefining what category they were really in and positioning themselves across all the way from actually quite beautiful and lovely to the end. And while they don't, and saying the business model doesn't have to be, they looked at the weakness. Hotels are hard businesses because you have to own a building, right? There's a lot of capital expenditure. If people don't show up, you're in big trouble. They don't own any of this stuff, right? So they've done super well, and the history from there. Anybody ever go to an Airbnb? Good experiences, bad experiences? Okay, so shook up the industry. All right, the last C is yourself. Okay, you have to look in your own mirror. That is your own competencies. What are you good at? What are you not good at? So why do you want to, be self-reflective? Not just, for your own mental health and well-being, but because it actually helps you be a lot better. So it's almost the inverse of thinking about the competitor, right? Think of yourself as a competitor. What are you good at and bad at? How do you make sure you avoid your weaknesses, invest in improving them, right? So that you can get better at those. Identify the core things that you are better at than the alternatives and put those on the top of your marketing, right? Rather than the others. And anticipate threats. Another way to anticipate threats, obviously, if you know those things. Again, be your own customer. If you don't use your own product, that's a problem. Read, again, this is a bit of the competition, but you got to talk to your customers. And again, you can do pretty much all the same tools, but you got to really look in yourself. And again, use your products. That's critical. And a lot of this will end up being about team. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of why this is also so important, because sometimes you can think about yourself the wrong way and think about what your strengths are, think they're really great, but they end up not being the most important strengths. So here's an example. There's an Israeli aerodynamics company, terrific guys, super smart. They came out of the Israeli military. They designed this unbelievable drone, okay? Super fast, super light, super maneuverable. It was different because it has 3 rotors in a triangle rather than otherwise. And the problem was they had no knowledge of manufacturing or scale or marketing or anything like that. They just were great, and they sort of at building something, and they assumed building it would be good enough. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So instead, and so they did an Indiegogo project. They only made 41% of their goal because they just didn't know how to actually be a business yet. Well, they looked inside themselves and decided, you know what, we are going to supplement our weaknesses with strengths, and they partnered with another company called Yi Technology, a Chinese hardware company that does cameras. And that company looked at themselves and said, well, look, we really know one of the things people use drones for, which is durable cameras that can attach wirelessly and do all that stuff. We'd like to have more flying cameras. That would be cool. We don't know anything about aerodynamics of drones. So they partnered, and in the end, they won lots of awards and have made progress and gone out to the market. So it is a good idea to look at yourself. So summary of the 3 C's, you want to know your customers, what and how they buy. The way to do this is think about what their priorities are. Remember, must-have versus nice-to-have. You want to be on the top list, and you want to know what's going to stop them from buying you and make sure you overcome that. In the end, your strategy is you need to have a critical needs strategy with customers. Yes?
Is there one that you particularly emphasize over the rest?
Number 1 is know your customers, right? And if you're not serving, they're the tiebreaker. They're the one who tell you what the competitor is. Now, again, you don't necessarily do everything your customer tells you, but you got to get into their mindset, right? You got to understand them and have empathy for them. Competitors, critical thing is actually how do they make money? Because that's probably the best source of weakness or strength, right? And you want to exploit that. And again, they're either a threat because they're coming after you, or they're too big, or whatever else, or they're an opportunity because they're slow, weak, or need something. Sometimes a competitor can end up being a partner, right? Understand their next moves. And the inverse is how do we make money? That's where our potential strength and weakness is. And then again, if we're going to fill in our weaknesses, how do we do that by either making our product better in the long run or actually partnering? Now, I'm going to quickly go through this last point because I want to get to our real star here. One other tool, you probably have heard of this. No, it is not SWOT, Special Weapons and Operations. It's this, which is, well, I'll go back. Who actually knows what this means? Lisanchi?
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Very good. You want a cookie? No? All right. I think people are sort of sick of my cookies, maybe. You can send me an email about that. Come up with something else. So it is a simple mapping when you look at the world overall across all those dimensions, right? The 3 C's. Can you create a little map that says, where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses, where are my opportunities and threats? It's just sort of a way to go all at once, what is the status of where I am? And the implications are pretty obvious, right? You want to reinforce your strengths. You want to try to compensate for or overcome your weaknesses. You want to exploit opportunities, and you want to avoid threats. And that can be the core input to a strategy. So we're not talking strategy right now. We're just talking about the stuff you need to learn before you make one, all right? So those are the 2 simple tool sets. There's lots of other ones, but I would say if you're going to do your homework and do research or go out and talk to people, you want to do that with this mindset of what am I looking for? So do your 3 C's, look for the gap analysis in all those, and you can do a SWOT as sort of an overall summary. So with that in mind, I want to hand it over to Jim, who is CEO of Mason, and which is a super exciting company that has done exactly this kind of thing, but not just in sort of an academic way, actually in an extremely practical way, and found some of those gaps in a market and has exploited them to grow from basically 0 in your kitchen to a thriving company that is making a big impact in a market that, frankly, was behind. And I'll let him say the rest. So, thanks, Jim. You know how to do it, right? You want me to click things? Do you want to click there? Sure. Thanks.
Can you guys hear me? So my therapist has been telling me I am on Instagram too much. I'm seeking too much when it comes to likes. So my first question is, how do you guys think I look tonight? All right, come on, it's for my therapist. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Is this good? All right. I dream big. My friend told me that, and he was going to give me $100 if I presented it to 120 MBAs and college students. No, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about my journey, what my team and I have accomplished with a little bit of scrappy play. 4 years ago, we were very much just a few people in a house. To date, we've raised $25 million in our Series A, and we have a promising venture to show the world. And I'm really excited to share that story with you guys. So that's me 2 years ago. Actually, this was me at the age of 14. Not much has changed besides some hair growth. I started this company called Mason. And the question you might ask is, hey, are you like born with an idea, or do you like start it because it was from a venture, or what is it? And I think it's good to go kind of back to basics and ask yourself at a younger age, what did you want to do when you grew up? If I was to ask my 14-year-old self today, were you born to be a stonemason? I was like, probably yeah. I started my first business resealing driveways at like $1,500 a pop. I had to interrupt, usually a white male in the suburb areas of Redmond, to stop watching the NFL and convince him to give 14-year-old self in my boxers, better clothes, a $300 deposit for a $1,500 driveway resealing job. I had no idea what driveway resealing was, but thanks to YouTube, I made a business out of it in the summertime. I was able to employ a number of my fellow middle school and high school friends, and we made a pretty good killing at it. We were making $15 an hour back in like 2003. I'm dating myself. And then I went on to be like, okay, well, I've been doing driveway resealing. Who do I actually idolize? Well, his name's Ben Franklin. He's on a $100 bill, worth aspiring to be on the $100 bill. And I Googled him, and he was a Freemason. So I was like, all right, if I started out resealing people's driveways like a modern-day stonemason, maybe someday I could become a Freemason. And I realized throughout the times when I was growing up that I would much rather be this like historian, this geek who like reads about all these kings and queens, rather than being one. And that has actually impacted how I built my business. So that has not come with a lot of pains, failures. Even this current venture is still up in the air. And I've tried a bunch of stuff along the way as a stonemason, starting from when I was a freshman at the University of Washington, helping nonprofits raise money online. We built campaigns for United Way of King County. This was an actual 7-figure contract that we did with the president of Amazon Payments when I was 18 years old. Believe it or not, even stingy Amazon was willing to give a little dinky startup a chance to play in the payments world for nonprofit fundraising. That failed. Why did it fail? Well, I was learning how to run a startup. I didn't know how to code. I didn't know how to build a website. My co-founder at the time was also a UW soccer captain and wanted to live out his dream, much bigger, in the MLS. So that was a gut shot. And as all entrepreneurs do, you decide to pivot and live it. You decide to take whatever the hell you built for nonprofits and say, hey, I'm going to go straight into hip hop. I'm going to go into the most adjacent industry vertical ever, which is I'm going to build music fan clubs. We took the technology we built for nonprofits to help where you can now donate your statuses for nonprofits, not just your Facebook status, not just donate cash. We took that technology and we gave it to Jason Derulo. Do you guys remember Jason Derulo? Big Sean. We helped put on Big Sean's first show back in 2010. A lot of exciting things in there. Happy to share offline. It involves losing a lot of money. So then what next? I graduated school. Actually, I did not graduate school. Sorry, that's a lie. My Chinese mother was like, you know what? I'm tired of seeing you doing all these startups. You should probably get like a real job at a company that I know, like Microsoft. So I did. And I went to Microsoft China because I was like, I'm going to take advantage of my advantage because I look like this and I could talk English and Chinese fluently. So that's where I went. Freaking hated it. It was like worse. Like imagine the Steve Ballmer era where everybody was talking shit about the CEO and you were the lowest on the totem pole. And when Redmond folks came over and had a conference with your general manager, everyone just got down on their knees, was like that. It was fucking nuts. So I was like, all right, I'm out. I decided to work for a different type of emperor. His name was Dan Gilbert, or is Dan Gilbert. You guys may have heard him as the owner of the Cavaliers. The letter to LeBron still brought him back, won the ship. And I worked for Quicken Loans family of companies. I was given the opportunity to work in venture and be a part of the early stage team of his VC firm at the age of 23. So that was really humbling and very exciting. That was kind of like my MBA. Then I left the glamorous world of venture capital, and this is all, by the way, in Detroit, Michigan, which is where all 20-year-olds should go to find their career path. Then I left that and joined a very sexy company that did refurbishing of iPhones and Samsungs. So I gave up the courtside Cavaliers life to go fix your iPhone. Makes a ton of sense. This all ties in together, by the way. And finally, that led me to Mason, where I was like, well, if I could fix it, I could probably go to the source, go make it, while going to Coachella at the same time. So that was how I started Mason. Life gets really interesting. But here's kind of the business case, right? What did I learn as I spent the last decade of my time? At Microsoft, the unique advantage, the perspective I gained was, look, you can actually build a monopoly if you have a reliable Windows platform coupled with cheap PCs. You can revolutionize the world. But it stopped at the desk and it stopped at the home when Bill Gates dropped the mic with the Department of Justice and decided to go save Africa. So the problem that I saw was, what about mobile for enterprise? Who's going to actually fill that void? At Detroit Venture Partners, we're an early stage fund. But what the point of view there was, we realized that, wow, software companies can actually be created much faster than before. You don't have to buy your servers. You can rent from AWS. You have Ruby on Rails that you can take advantage of and build the next Twitter. So what utensils will we need, as Mark Andreessen talks about, when software is eating the world?
What do you mean by utensils? Do you mean like picks and shovels to the gold rush? Or?
Yeah, I think software is like the magic. It's like the thing you whisper to a computer and then it automates things for you. But that thing needs to get delivered in a vehicle. It needs hardware. Your Snapchat app isn't worth anything in the cloud unless it gets that 1/2 inch of screen real estate on your phone. That's what makes it an $18 billion company. Sorry, I'm really thirsty. It was like a really long Uber ride. All right. So then at NextLink, that was really cool. This was eye-opening. Billion-dollar medical companies will come to us and say, all right, I have a defibrillator product. So this is the thing that like keeps you alive if you have a cardiac arrest, like actually life-saving. And I need to pair a device to it to send data back to the cloud so that when you arrive alive or dead at the hospital, we know what to do. Makes sense? But here's my solution. I need you, Jim, to go refurbish tens of thousands of old Samsung phones, hack the operating system, connect it to my defibrillator, and support it for 5 years. So I looked at the guy in the face. I was like, yeah, that was fucking scary as shit. There's probably a better solution than that. And that kind of got my itch going, where I can combine some of the insights I've gained in the past into what possibly might be my next adventure, which was Mason. This breaks all the rules. So I decided to say, hey, you know what? Why not give away the supply chain of Apple? It's easy to make a device. We make devices 12 times faster than Apple from the circuit board up. Why not? Why can't we build software tools like Microsoft? Fuck it. Windows platform, doable. It was built on someone else's operating system in the first place. If you read your history, DOS started first, and that wasn't Bill's. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
And the last thing is like, why not top it all off with taking the complex services that Amazon, that Jeff Bezos, and all his mischievous extracurricular activities has still managed to promise you 2-day shipping. What if we can do that as well? What if we're not the Uber for X? What if I'll provide you the X, the Y, and the Z, the new coordinates to create entire new category of smart hardware products? What if I allow you to build your own square with just a couple of friends? The next Peloton, the next Samsara, the next Ring. So then I got into a man cave, smoked a lot of pot, and started vision questing. For the most part, that's true. And summarized it in a vision statement, which is, what is it that I'm actually here for? If I had plenty of resources, if I had millions of dollars at my disposal, what do I actually want to do? Who are the kinds of people that I want to work with? Together, how can we create a beautifully efficient world? We have all the pieces out there. But instead of spending it on Kardashian e-commerce products, which is not a bad thing, how can we use that energy to enable smarter, more connected products to make the world faster, more efficient? To automate these mundane tasks so the nurse can spend 5 more minutes with you as a human being versus 5 minutes typing into a computer. So, 2016, we joined YC, raised a couple $1 million on the idea from some well-known folks, including Joe Montana. Moved into a house. That was our house. Our office was outdoors. And this was our GarageBand stage. We had to figure out how to make devices, drink to eat with our Chinese partners, learn how to speak Chinese. He's actually better at Chinese than I am. No joke. Figure out how during a typhoon, category 5 storm last year, Manukut, I am not making this up, you can Google it. When you have the world's biggest drug dealers that are saying, hey, I need my devices on time to do my clinical trial study, or I'll have your head. We sent our people into Chongqing, and we picked up the devices.
By the way, when you say drug dealers, you mean
pharmaceutical companies.
Pharmaceutical. Just clarify.
I went to an improv class, or not improv, like a comedy stand-up show yesterday as an audience member, and like I'm all inspired. So please give me a couple extra likes.
Miami Vice thing going on here, Jim.
Is there? Is there? The hair and everything. All right. It's all legal for the most part, I think. That's why you buy insurance. Okay. So over here, that was our golden chariot. Oh, you can't see it, but this was inside the golden chariot. The golden chariot was the device, I think it was a GMC. You could sleep in it, bar. It was like for the former CEO of Haier. You might not know, Haier is like the world's largest appliance maker. They own GE Appliances. They're our partner. They help us manage supply chain, process payments. They're like our Amazon payments for my nonprofit company, but for China, because it's really hard to go collect from a bunch of different vendors in China if you don't know their names and they don't tell you if the stuff shows up on time. So this was actually one of our customers from a big e-commerce company, $40 billion plus. We're building their mobile point of sale solution, entire smart product line from 6 inches to self-ordering kiosks. This was also in China, so this is how you do enterprise sales. You essentially sedate them. And
they take pictures to blackmail.
The jokes are awful. These jokes are awful. You can't see their faces. So this was our GarageBand stage, and we almost died during the stage. That's what I forgot to mention. In the beginning of the year, personally broke up with my girlfriend, fantastic at the time. Had to fire my best friend. lost our best Android engineer, had to essentially serve 2 different customers in 90 days, or we were out of money. So we did that. And when you're able to overcome, then it's like, maybe it's time to invite other people to this party. So we grew from 9 people at the end of 2018 in the house to about 35 at the end of last year. So this is our new office, or I guess we've been there for a while, in downtown Seattle, overlooking the water. And so far so good. So this is kind of like where we're at today, and I'll show you some more of the MBA slides, which is why you guys pay a lot of tuition to go see. So before I tried to go raise money actually back in 2018 after we shipped the devices. You think everything would go swell. You're in Y Combinator. They invite you to go do their Series A programs. You're like, oh, I'm a hot shot, and put on my blazer. I asked the same question, do I look good? And at the end, it was very obvious that no one was going to give us money. So what do? Right? You overcame all odds. We did $4.5 million in revenue, GAAP revenue, in 2017, or 2018, with 9 people in a house doing enterprise sales with Twilio-like margins. Why was it that no one was going to give us money? What were we going to do? We had EBITDA that year. EBITDA. When I asked investors in the Valley, do you know what EBITDA smells like? They said no. Right? And so that became the reason why.
Earnings before income, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It means profit.
It's like, why you want to start a company? So at the time, at the end of last year, we didn't have a capital infusion. We had a hint of product market fit. So I put together some slides to inspire our team. And no matter what, we were going to still run our company with or without venture money. Because you don't need venture money to be successful. We're still on that path, that crazy mission to build a beautifully efficient world. How do we help governments? How do we help the retail sector? So I was like, all right, here's some business slides. Let's come up with a theme. I kind of like art of war stuff. So I was like, recon, attack, defend. 2019, we will protect this house, right? So what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna recon. We're gonna find new customers. New verticals going to, right? We're already in healthcare, so let's attack it hard. Let's defend the customers we already have. Let's protect it. Let's rely on the margins so we will survive. Profit will feed us. I had a little nice. This is what I shared with our team. I was like, this is our plan. Everybody bought it, and I was like, fuck VC investment. We can do it. Why get dilution when we can generate this? And we're on a path to this. When we can control our own destiny, meaning the revenue generated per head can power your own oxygen, put bread on the table, and water and wine as well. So then when we do our Series A, it becomes much easier. We can go from our house, guerrilla warfare, to what's conventional, Series A. Let's go fight on the regular battlefield. Someone's going to want to fund us. And this was our headcount projection before raising money. So, odd enough, time passed, and investors started knocking because I put together these slides. We had some great folks show up. The second largest hedge fund, technology hedge fund, Co2. We had the largest technology hedge fund, Tiger Global, Lee Fixel, with his backpack. My grandma shows up. Hi. And all of a sudden we have interest. People want to start investing in us. Well, you guys are like and you guys are the Uber, and you're the that. And all of a sudden, it's time to sell some stock, right? And so that's, I can do more on investment stuff, but that's how we generate demand. That's how we raise a fairly large Series A, and now we have the capitalization to get to the next stage. My team is really excited about how do we lift off. We now have all this rocket fuel. How do we get to $100 million plus in revenue? How do we become a true going concern? How do we become an enduring company that can enable the world? How do we raise our next round so some of us can buy a house? That's all part of it. So I know I'm running out of time. There's 3 key takeaways. So I was really thinking super, super hard on the way here, and I wrote these 3 things down. The first one is like I think you can find product market fit on like aisle 7 if you go to Nordstrom, and that shit ain't true. Product market fit is not something you can just ask for or write about. Product market fit hits you like gravity. Like when market wants you, it just pummels you. We went from our clinical trial customer, 30 devices, oh, the great pilot, 3,000, then 10,000, then typhoon hits, then 30,000. Now we're supporting 20,000 patients, 4 of the top pharma companies, and we have 20 different countries, including China, and we want virus stuff that's happening, clinical trials happening on us. So when it does happen, get ready for it. So the second thing to note is make sure you have enough runway. If you really care about this thing, you have to make sure you have enough cycles to survive. Otherwise, you get out. And there's some rules to kind of think about. I made these up. One is cash is your oxygen. You're going to burn it. Every minute, you're paying people. That is true. Your burn rate is true. You cannot lie about that. Second is the gross margin is what's going to keep you alive. If it costs you $1 to make 50 cents, you're screwed. In the long term, even if you have $100 million worth of venture, fantastic capital, you'll burn it. Because it doesn't make sense, right? Math people like to spend $1 to make 50 cents.
So, do you guys know what gross margin is? So basically, you sell something for X and it costs you Y to make it. You need to have the difference between those two be positive. Otherwise, everything you sell will make you poorer. And that doesn't seem good.
And every day you wake up in the morning.
You won't just lose your shirt, you'll lose your pants.
Like Uber?
Yes. Negative gross margins are a distinct evil.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so every day you have like this team you sign up for, whether it's 9 people, 35, 300. And this village that you have to provide for, you think about, what do I need to do? Well, you wake up and you go freaking hunt. That's what revenue is about. Make sure there's enough left over after you feed your family, your village, to invest in your village's infrastructure. Because God knows what it's like taking out the shit if you don't have living water. Now, the third thing, man, this is a tough crowd. So the last thing is, this is like something YC taught me, is that like it's actually really easy to defy gravity if you know the math formula. To 2x in 10 periods, you simply just need to compound 7% rate week over week, or whatever that period is. So to defy gravity, you need to think about, how do I 2x? How do I be so much effing faster than the competition, the substitutes, than someone else who wants your job to get what you want? And how are you owning that metric of what that growth is? If you can't do that, you're not going to do this. And who cares, because you can't find product market fit in outside. So come join us. We have a sweet office, giant Jenga. We have really cool team bonding events where you forge swords and knives. So you know me. Thank you.
Questions for Jim?
Thank you for sharing so much about kind of the journey and what led you up to doing Mason. I'm still just a little confused with what exactly you do. So I understand that you are building the smart tech, your defibrillators. That sounds really cool. Is that still the main thing you're focusing on? Have you branched out to other ways of sort of taking old parts of healthcare like that and making them, better? Can you just go into a little more detail, kind of about what exactly?
Yeah, so when you first get started, you like say, I want to build a platform. And everyone's building a platform, but really just like, go make something people want, they give you money, you provide good service, like period. Right? So first, like, it had to be medical device companies. And it was pharma companies. Then it was hospitals. We're in like 6 hospital systems. Right? And then, so the strategy, like with Microsoft did not say, I'm going to go build the application for the dentist, because that's too small of a market for Bill Gates. He was like, I'm going to build a platform so all these other people can build things for dentists and like nurses and dog walkers and whatever. I'm just going to build a platform. So that was always our dream, is to show that. And how do we manifest that? We started talking to other customers. Hey, if I keep my the thing I'm building at its core the same devices, right? You guys can pass this around. So this is actually our tablet that we made from scratch. We can produce this in America, which Apple cannot even do. This one does not turn on because I never charge it. So we have like 25, 30,000 of these across a number of different vertical use cases. It looks like a smartphone, but what Mason can do is accessorize it, build it for a vertical use. So the e-commerce company wrapping a point of sale system around that, so it turns into, if you close your eyes really quickly while I do my magic trick, to turn into a point of sale system. Right? They have a certified payment module. So how do we wrap that in a hard accessory so restaurant workers can drop it? And now you don't have to wait for your check. They just check you out. So if you want to compete with Toast, and you're the guy who did Chili's, and you're running on legacy stuff, how do you catch up? If Square needs 150 engineers run by the former head of iPod engineering, in 2-3 years with $50 million in investment to build this sleek point of sale system, what do? Even if you have money, do you have the time to catch up? So that's what we did. That did not answer your question at all, but hopefully. Yeah.
Can I just say, Jim, so just to tie it back to some of this landscape analysis stuff, my perception, and you can yell at me and tell me I'm wrong, but I think a big part of what you did was go, look, there's this huge discontinuity, right? I mean, there's all these enterprises who make all this horrible junk that's really expensive and not that great. And meanwhile, there's this giant mobile phone industry that you're sitting there repairing in order to customize. Mm-hmm. And rather than customizing, how about I do, in effect, this sort of mass standardization kind of thing that Bill did, right? And Intel did, and Dell did, and go, you know what, we're going to make it very easy for you to get the scale benefits and the reliability benefits of devices that have been shipped in the hundreds of millions, tuned exactly for your very specific enterprise need, right? We're going to put those two things together. And we're going to make that easy to repeat over and over and over again, no matter what industry you are in. And that basically solved a problem in a completely different way for people.
Yeah, and that's
Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
and,
good.
like I've shown you guys like smartphones and tablets. Like that's the empty to play, right? If I say I can give you Apple's playbook, I gotta at least build you all of Apple's replacement devices, including this watch. Right. So this year we're launching a device, a watch that you guys can completely white label. So if you want to build like grandma tracker, you can build grandma tracker. It doesn't require you to spend millions of dollars, a bunch of time engineering. You now have a head start in the game. We're launching 55-inch screens in our hospital systems. We have 22-inch touch screens from Australia to Missouri. Right? This stuff is like bolted into the hospital, so you can order Netflix. And if you're there for diabetes treatment, you shouldn't have like this sugar diet. So the nurse tells you this is what you should use instead. It's all done through the tablet.
I want to raise one other thing on this. Like you'll probably hear me multiple times, even in your business plans or whatever. When you write the word platform, I will vomit on it. Right? Because I just think way too many times people go like, oh, we're building a platform, and you don't really know what a platform means. Right? Like a platform is not just like a thing you stand on top of. You know, I understand everybody wants one, but Jim actually did the thing you're supposed to do when you build a platform. A platform is not what you want. A platform is not a technology. A platform is a business that other people make business money from, right? So Jim makes it easier for other people to make money delivering something on top of what he builds. And so he's created, and we'll talk about this next week under strategies, you're sort of embedding other people to want you to succeed. Because if you don't succeed, they don't succeed. So that's really what a platform is. A business platform makes that happen. And Pesa is a business platform because there's tons of businesses that would not survive without it, right? They've enabled lots and lots of applications. That's what you are doing in a category that it frankly hasn't been platformized. So Jim's company is one of the very few companies I would actually not kill for saying platform, because that's actually what you did.
And you mentioned like, hey, I still don't know what you do. So can you like explain to me what you do? And like, we don't actually use platform because I'm dead scared of that. When I was working at Microsoft China, my general manager was like, oh, so what you been doing? I was like, oh, I was building a platform for nonprofits to raise money online. He's like, son, in Chinese, like, let me tell you about a platform business. It's called Microsoft Windows. And I was like, oh. And then he's like telling you the secrets, like, wow, so like, None of the shit people are building are truly a platform, right? Platform companies do not talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Stripe does not talk about Stripe. Stripe talks about how it makes it so easy for a developer to add the ability to process money for the goods or services they sell. Right? The more they enable behind the scenes, the more money they collect. We collect anywhere from 3% to 30% of our customers' revenue. That is revenue on our platform.
So I just, maybe one or two more questions, because you guys are supposed to go upstairs, and I don't want to get in a huge amount of trouble. So one or two more questions, then I have a few closing comments, and you guys can go upstairs. And if you want to go, too, we can.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. Alex, you had a question? Other Alex?
I was just to follow up on the platform concept, like the platforms for like Stripe as an example, but what about a social networking platform that's not making people directly money, but it's helping them create a community which can foster money in new programs or something?
Yeah, I did learn this really quickly in VC. So Google, like Fred Wilson, angel hack business models, and it'll just come up there. So the secret of all like making money, there's only like 7 business models. And when you boil it down like that, then it's really easy for you to look at a company and actually understand what the value proposition is. So for instance, a platform, I make money on licenses. E-commerce, I make money on selling you something where I cut out the middleman and have margin, right? If I'm an advertising business, I'm going to get eyeballs, I'm going to sell it to an advertiser. Casual gaming, payment processing. And then that's about it. Like there aren't that actual many ways for you to create gross margin from revenue minus costs to get your profit. A lot of VCs are investing in companies that can disrupt and create a completely new business model. But the tried and true is what you can look at that actually works. Right? So if you analyze things, if you Google that, just like, okay, what are like platform businesses, what's their business model? Then it's like very, very clear. Right? Like Facebook, Google, they're advertising place. Like for you to get 30% EBITDA, that earnings before everything, right? It's because like they own the world eyeballs, at least on the Western front, right? Eastern front is different, Baidu, WeChat, and other people.
Michelle.
I saw that you grew really fast. What was the biggest challenge you faced when you were scaling up in that 2019 to 2020 year, where you just like saw your curve just go
Just
straight up?
go like that. So we hit like clinical trials. We went from like 30 devices, which we make about $180 a year in annual licenses, from 30 devices to 35,000 with this customer, and they committed another 90,000. And this is still like a fraction of the market for drug companies, clinical trials. So they use these devices to collect data for clinical trials to be submitted. Right now, it's still paper pencil. So when we hit the fit was we figured out, okay, if we're a platform, we're going to help our customer, this clinical trial software company, win. We're going to give them a gun to sword fight. No one's harmed, but like the whole point was product-wise, they were able to go to market faster. They were able to do a China study, Wuhan virus. Like it's crazy. Like these guys are blown up with like light years, right? You blew their minds away. So what happens when one of the top pharma companies buys your stuff, another one buys it, another one buys it, and you get that viral effect, that network effect within that industry niche. And so that's where it was like unstoppable. To the point where they're like, hey Jim, we have another 10,000 unit order for you. I was like, I have a category 5 store. And our biggest challenge was actually executing. Like the promise was all made, the product, everyone was like, all right, man, here's money. And we're like, oh wow, we have to go deliver this thing. That doesn't commit.
All right. I want to thank you very much for spending the time and sharing all of it. So, pretty incredible story about, I would say you said product market fit, but I think it's also product business fit. So it's not just, finding or, market business fit. You had a business model that fit that. And that really came from understanding and listening, but also listening to yourself. So I'm going to skip over the other stuff that I'll tell you another time, which is all this, sort of looking at your landscape from an investor perspective. I'll do that another time. You can read it. I just want to, summarize. Remember your 3 C's, right? Remember SWOT, and basically do what Jim did, which is find a market fit and drive into it like a maniac. And I love this point about gravity, right? Like, let gravity lead you. Don't fight gravity. Let gravity lead you. So next week, very quickly, we're going to take all of what you learned in studying your market and your competitors in that whole playing field and to think, what is the play that's going to get you into that market and actually drive that kind of success? What kind of strategic decision are you going to make? Just kind of like you did, which is where do you find that gravity and how you pull it, and what are you going to attach that to? And we're going to have two speakers who are strategists. So this is all really about strategy. The founder of DocuSign, and then the founder of a strategy consulting firm, very interesting one. You've got some readings that I think are useful, one which I wrote. A few of you have picked a team, pick a team. You do have a survey, it's not optional, do it. And then we have, as I mentioned, we have another pitch clinic a week from Wednesday that you can join. So with that, do your homework and pass.